Hey friends, happy Thursday. I'm back home. I'm sitting outside about to do readings. You can see the reflection behind me. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm not using any of my gear. I wanted to talk today a little bit more about my time living in the woods because I had a client tell me they loved hearing about it. And also I wanted to, in relation to that, share about finding a balance between spiritual side of life and the physical regular side of life. It really is a balance, and I definitely tried to escape a lot after my experience. So first off, living in the woods. I think some of us really are meant to do that. I think some of us it's part of our soul's need. And when I lived in the woods, it's what I really, really needed. When I first saw the light over my bed and felt all that love from God, I just wanted to go live in the woods forever. That's what I felt. I was like, I was afraid I was going to have to drop out of grad school, but partially I really wanted to drop out of grad school because I wanted to just go feel that feeling that I had all the time. I wanted to immerse myself in it, and going to the woods seemed like a place I could do that. So, I didn't go live in the woods right away. I finished graduate school, like 2 years of grad school, balancing these spiritual experiences with my regular life. And then I did um, eventually make my way back to Louisiana and lived in the small town where my parents had moved after Katrina, where my mom and stepdad had moved. It was 2 hours outside of New Orleans. And first I lived in a little cabin in the town, and then I moved to a cabin on 100 acres of woods. And it was so beautiful. Um, it was, I got to see a lot of deer. I saw a lot of animals like raccoons and rattlesnakes, and there were tons of trees everywhere. There was like little paths, going through the woods and a little pond. And I just had this kind of ramshackle cabin. It was pretty run down. It was a one-bedroom cabin, and I spent a lot of time there. I mean, I still had a job. I still had friends, but when I wasn't doing regular life stuff, I was just in this little yellow cabin, and it had a porch. I would sit on it a lot and look at the trees. I loved it. I had a lot of psychic dreams while I was living there, and I think partially that was because I was so removed from the everyday life. So my psychic dreams were really ramped up, but it got to the point where they got a little boring. I would have a dream about a kid drinking a cup of water, and the next day I would see it. So I did eventually decide I didn't. I like having psychic dreams if it's something I really need to know, but being that removed, I think it's for me, it's an escape. I had to really decide I wanted to be involved in the world. I wasn't going to just escape it. But I do think sometimes that's someone's perfect path, is to be kind of removed and meditating. I was doing that to escape my life. I was also during that time trying to figure out how to leave the earth. And I love talking with Betty. Like, part of why I love having spiritual experience or friends, I love having all kinds of friends, but if you've had a near death or near death like experience, I felt like I was really strange because I didn't know other people who'd had this feeling, but you just are always looking to get back to it until you move past that phase, which I finally did. But it was really fun to talk with Betty this past weekend and talk about how, oh yeah, like I thought if I did this certain thing, if I did these certain things, I'd get to go back. And I was always walking around the woods, basically trying to figure out where the light went. Was there a portal? I really thought, okay, if I walk through the woods in this certain way, I will find the portal, and then I'll be able to get back to my experience. That didn't happen, and I do know now the portal is through the heart. So it wasn't going to be anything in my external world that was going to bring me back to my spiritual experience. It's an internal sense, it's an internal heart connection that brings me back to that place, and I'm finding it more and more. Yay. Um, but it wasn't anything outside of me. It was only internal that was going to take me back. But at the time, I didn't know that. I just kept walking around being like, where's the light? Where are the angels? How can I find it? um, it was very confusing. I know God has a perfect plan, creator, source, whatever you want to call it, but at the time it just seemed very strange, and it still seems pretty strange. Like, why did they let me think of all these wrong things for so long? I know why technically I'm supposed to be talking about it because I spent so long figuring it out for myself that I can tell y'all about it. Um, but still, like, you just let me flounder. Anyway, so that was my time in the woods, and that was not very balanced. So getting to the next part of the video is like finding the balance between the spiritual side and your physical life. Um, I think it's very common at the beginning of any spiritual journey to want to only be spiritual, only experience the spiritual side of life, and kind of reject the physical side. Um, but over time, I do truly believe now we're living in a dream, even though I thought when the shaman told me that, I was like, you're really weird. You're wrong. What are you talking about? We live in a dream. So, but now I do believe like we are creating this dream in the physical, and connecting with the spiritual side of life in a balanced way helps us create a more beautiful dream. Many of us connecting to the spiritual side of life, like love, connection, unity, peace, helps us build like a beautiful dream in the physical, not just for ourselves, but for humanity. And I think that's what we're being called to do now. At least I feel that way. So it took me a lot of time to find the balance, and I honestly feel like I'm only finding it these past few years since I started telling my story. That's a big balancing act for me, because as much as when I lived in the woods, I was like, I want to try to find the spiritual life. I want to try to get back to my experience. Then when I realized I couldn't do that, I was like, I'm only going to live in the physical world. That was a lie. And, just swinging to the other side completely, that physical life is all that matters. I'm just going to have fun with my friends and ignore the spiritual side. So neither one of those was the right. I had to do both of those, but it's in the middle. So I think it's really important to find a balanced spiritual practice, because when you have a balanced spiritual practice, whatever it is, it helps you connect to that side of life and then go live your life. So I do meditation every day. It's not like I do it because I think I'm supposed to. I do it because it's the only way I'm balanced and sane. If I don't meditate, I get really confused and I get really like kind of lost in my mind. It's also how I'm able to hear the angels. So because I do work with that, I do messages for people. I do set readings. I'm about to start some readings sessions, sacred soul sessions. I'll put the link in the description if you want to book with me. I still have lots of openings in the summer months. So I do, meditation, light meditation, journaling, being in nature, but anything that touches into that soul part of life, so that as I go through my day, I can keep that connection going. It is still a balancing act. I still work on it. It's not like I'm always working on it. I don't feel like I've perfected. Like I don't walk through the world like, oh, this is how I know how to do things. I'm like, I've got it figured out. I work on it every day. And it's really, really lovely to get back to that place of the joy and the love I felt during my STE. And then basically, when I can get to that place, I'm really, really excited. I definitely felt it in New York because I had my experience there, and I was just retuning into all the levels of my spiritual experience and like coming back and telling it. It was so cool. And I was like, oh yeah, this is that light. This is how it feels. So I'm trying to get it here too. Anyway, what helps you feel balanced? Again, I think it's a learning process for all of us, and I think it's very normal to do one or the other to the extreme, and at least for me it was. And then just finding in the middle balanced path between the physical and the spiritual world, that like infinity sign. Finding that balance is really beautiful and key. And so yeah, being a mom makes me be pretty balanced about my spiritual stuff, because I have to like feed my daughter. you know I can't just like float away. So um yeah, I think that's it for today. I hope that was enough stories about my time in the woods. I spent about, let's see, I moved back home in 2008, and then I stayed in the little town in the woods till 2012. um and it was an evolution of trying to escape to and living in the woods, and then being like, never mind, I made it up. But it was during that time, I talked the other week about how, the shaman told me that, and I was freaking out about different things people told me while I was living in the town and still not sure if what happened to me was real. I would sometimes work at this coffee shop there that's still there that I love. And while I was working there one Saturday, I think it was Saturday, this lady walks up to me and said, the Holy Spirit speaks to me. I speak to the Holy Spirit, and I just was told that you are anointed by the Holy Spirit. And she was like coming up to me like, you're anointed by the Holy Spirit. And I was like, oh my gosh, these people won't leave me alone. No, it was very beautiful. She was so sincere. And I remember being like, her telling me that I was anointed by the Holy Spirit. That's nothing I grew up with. Again, like I wasn't raised Christian, so I didn't know those terms, but I thought maybe there's more to my experience. Maybe something really did happen to me if she's coming up and telling me that, this stranger. But again, my skeptical mindset, my skeptical voice from my dad was like, this lady's nuts. Just like me. Anyway, so that did happen while I was living in the woods. And anyway, 2012, I moved back to New Orleans and just kind of tried to forget about it all. And then obviously now I'm finding the balance. I would love to hear how you find the balance. I'd love to hear any thoughts you have about this. And yeah, thank you for being on this journey with me. It's really great to feel accepted and seen, and know that I'm not as weird as I think I am, and that if my stories help you on your beautiful spiritual journey, I'm very thankful, because it can be lonely. And I do feel like there's a lot of noise out there. So thanks for being here, and have a good day. Tell me your stories too. Love y'all. Bye.